Welcome to Living My Breastless Life podcast. I'm your host, HPG, and today we're going to do a Season 2 wrap-up. This episode will conclude Season 2, and I cannot wait for Season 3. I'm going to share some personal highlights of Season 2. Welcome to Living My Breastless Life podcast. I'm your host, HPG. In Season 2, you'll continue to hear about how we can heal no matter what we go through, some tips and truths for self-improvement, and some little nuggets of wisdom for finding yourself on your path. I'll be hosting some mini-sodes, interviewing some awesome guests, and of course, some episodes with my occasional co-host, Martha. So let's go. I am always looking for ways we can improve ourselves, how we can grow our knowing, and what we can do to help achieve that. In Season 2, we explored some ways to do just that. I love the Enneagram, and I have for some years. I really enjoyed hearing Lindsay Frazier share some insights on the topic on the very first episode that kicked off Season 2.
I try to make it as simple as I can because the Enneagram is actually quite a complex system. But the way that I often think about it is thinking that there are 9 different ways that all of us approach the world. And if we go through, and I could just briefly give a little touch point for each type. So we have our type 1, which is our perfectionist. They want to be seen as good within the world. Their biggest fear is they're going to be seen as bad or corrupt.
I have started using the Enneagram in my coaching practice to help folks with self-discovery. I have learned a lot more about the Enneagram this summer. I am a number 6 in the Enneagram, and I have recently heard this is the most common type. I find this to be very interesting. Human design continues to fascinate me. I loved the episode with Alicia, who is very knowledgeable about it. She describes human design in a way that is very easy to understand.
So human design is a combination of a few different systems. It was created by a man called Ra Uru Hu, very interesting name, and he combined the principles of the Chinese I Ching system, of astrology, Western astrology, of the Kabbalah, of the Hindu Brahman chakra system, and a little bit of quantum physics. So he took all of these different systems.
I use human design with one of my therapists and used it with my own life coach. I think it's a great way to learn more about yourself. I recently read that generators are the most common type. Do you agree? I do not feel so common, but I'm starting to see a pattern here. Perhaps we have more in common as a collective than I thought. When Sarah Kaufman Bradstreet and I discussed routines and alcohol-free life, I really like how establishing a routine in alcohol-free life can be so helpful. I have been working more on some of my own routines. Even if you're not living alcohol-free or new to alcohol-free life, there is such value in a routine for yourself. What are some simple routines that you can start in your everyday life? I have been leading some group coaching calls for No More Wasted Days. So if you need support on your alcohol-free journey, come join us. There is a link to check it out on my website. I finally got to talk about menopause and perimenopause on the show. I have really been looking for a guest since I started the podcast, and I found that when I had the opportunity to interview Lee Edwards.
Going back to our analogy, menopause is like the grand finale of this 3-act play. And as I mentioned earlier, it's technically defined as a period, 12 months since the woman's had her last menstrual period. So 12 consecutive months without one. At this stage, basically, you can think of your ovaries as having retired from releasing eggs and producing most of the estrogen.
This is a topic that needs to be heard. I recently heard Michelle Obama and Oprah talk about how this topic needs to be discussed more on the Netflix special about Michelle Obama's book, The Light We Carry. If they are saying the topic needs to be discussed more, I dare say my thoughts were correct. Talking with Lakin Litton about ADHD on my 2-part ADHD series was so helpful for my own ADHD. I had a lot of ahas and personal takeaways from those 2 episodes. I shared my coming out story and had the pleasure of interviewing Giselle Wallace about lesbian life, faith, and the Black community. I learned so much in this interview, and this topic needs more voice.
I've experienced early in my life of just the pressure of trying to be accepted and to fit in. So I think we all can kind of relate to people on the down low. And it's just, it breaks my heart that people have to hide who they are and they don't have the support or they don't have enough information on how to be able to express themselves and be themselves. There's so many dynamics they have to deal with, and
we need to do better. Make sure you check out this episode along with Giselle's book and her services. I love every episode of Season 2. These are just some of my highlights and reflections. It is so fascinating to meet people all over the world and hear their stories. It's probably my favorite part of being a podcaster. So stay tuned for Season 3. I'm so excited to share Season 3 with y'all. Thank you so much for listening and supporting Living My Breastless Life podcast. Please share, follow, and leave a review. Check out www.accordingtohpg.com to learn more about my life coaching services, my blogs, and resources. Go get your mammograms. Thank you for listening to this episode of Living My Breastless Life. Head over to Instagram and follow According to HPG to stay connected to the show. Go get your mammograms.